Hey everybody, Dave Wilde here, and I have a special treat for you today. Posting this on my blog at galaxyzento.blogspot.com instead of typing anything out. Today I am going to read you a story from GZ Tales Volume 1, and I do hope you enjoy it. The story is called Imaginary Enemy. And as I said, I hope you enjoy it. This will be my first time trying something like this, so off we go then. Imaginary Enemy. "I don't know what you think you're getting away with, young lady," the nurse scolded the red-headed little girl. The child sat on her hospital bed, with her knees in her arms rocking slightly. Tears streamed down her face. "You shouldn't yell at me," she murmured. "What?" The nurse scowled at the audacity. "How dare you? I've never met an 8-year-old with such horrible manners." The lecture continued, but the little girl buried her face in her knees. The metal service table next to her bed trembled as if in a light earthquake. The nurse took no notice of this, being too upset at what she saw as a rude, disrespectful behavior. In a far corner of the room, a shadow formed and grew out across the walls and ceiling, reaching up over the nurse's head. "You need to look at me when I'm talking to you, little missy." The little girl looked up, her face soaked with tears. Her expression was one of agony. "You should run now," she said desperately. "Please run away." The nurse looked up to the darkness that now obscured part of the room. The girl hid her face, sobbing, "No, no, no." A new raspy voice floated into the room. "You mustn't suffer the children." The nurse screamed. The sound echoed across the hospital ward, startling patients and staff. Staff members ran to the sound, finding the air thick with the smell of rancid smoke and burning flesh. Far across New York City, Larry Peters pulled his motorcycle into the parking garage across from the government office he worked at. His long blonde hair was windblown, but he didn't care. He hated helmets. The Parahuman Activity Commission existed to investigate threats conventional law enforcement couldn't handle. He was better known by his operating handle, Black Tide. His name came from the ability to emit disintegration energy from his body. Disintegration energy is like a beam of darkness or shadow that can move as fast as light. Before Black Tide joined up with Pack, he had trouble controlling his powers. This caused great anxiety for him. He always worried for friends and anyone he might come to care for. His powers manifested at a very young age. Larry and his parents were sitting at breakfast when a surge of his power made him an orphan. The event lives on in his nightmares to this day. Then he met his partner, a twilight demon called Nightwolf. When they first met, the demon formed a psychic bond with Larry. That bond allowed him to buffer Larry's powers and helped control them. At first, it was a violation of Larry's extremely private life. However, they soon became best friends and trusted partners. As Larry parked his bike, Nightwolf was nearby in his favorite delicatessen. Seeing the shadowy werewolf-like being with huge black feathery wings come into the cafe always raised eyebrows and got attention. Since he usually moved intangibly, he never bothered to open the door. Nightwolf would just ghost through it, often startling patrons. Since his motives were always friendly, he never understood the fuss. The owner had come to accept it, especially since Nightwolf was a paying customer with a big appetite. Nightwolf had come for an entire box of his favorite treat: bite-sized cream cheese cubes in foil wrappers. Take a drink real quick. "Here you go. Just the way you like them and on your tab," said the man at the register. Nightwolf snatched up the box with a lupine grin. "Thank you." On his way out of the deli, he tore open the box and popped a handful into his mouth, wrappers and all. "I see you picked up your afternoon snack," Larry said as he walked up on the busy New York City street. "Yes, it's what I left early for." The two of them shared a high loft apartment where Nightwolf could enjoy views of the city and Larry could get some peace and quiet. They walked across the street to the office building. Inside, they were greeted by Sally, the receptionist, who gave them a sweet smile. "He's waiting for you and in a mood," she said. Commander Henry P. Loratus was always in a gruff mood and short on patience. He expected jobs to be done quickly and efficiently. Sometimes the members of PAC liked to aggravate him just to see his bald head turn red. Excuse me. They were, however, careful not to do that too much. Blacktide and Nightwolf went straight to his office to see what the news was. "It's about time you two got here," Loratus grumbled as they walked in. "I've got one that's right up your alley, Blacktide. A little girl who may be developing dangerous powers. Burned a nurse pretty badly in the psych ward this morning. Here, read the report." He tossed a folder across the desk, but didn't wait for a response. "I want you to find out if she's developing or if it's something else. Now get going." Once you're dismissed by Commander Loratus, it means he has nothing more to tell you, so it's useless to ask. Larry took the folder and walked out of the office. He went to his desk to look it over. As he read the nurse's story, it reminded him very much of his own. Thanks to their psychic link, Nightwolf read the information at the same time, without having to look. "She's just like me," Larry said. "Perhaps," Nightwolf answered as he put his box of cream cheese in their office refrigerator. They set out immediately. The story of a little girl named Issa had piqued Larry's interest. Nightwolf flew overhead as Blacktide rode his motorcycle through the thick daily traffic. The psychiatric hospital lay on the outskirts of the city in a peaceful green country setting. Pine trees and green rolling hills complemented the place's floral and well-kept grounds. Inside, half of the children's wing had been evacuated. No one dared enter the little girl's room. When Blacktide and Nightwolf arrived, they could see the relief in the faces of staff. "No one can move her and we're done trying," an orderly said. "Our head nurse suffered third-degree burns all over her body." "Just tell me which room is hers," Larry said, not caring for the dismissive attitude he saw mixed in with their fear. He couldn't shake how everyone turned their backs on him once, too. They blamed him for his powers, when he never even asked to have them. They were afraid of him. "Room 115, just don't upset her. That's when things go bad. Watch out for the shadows." Larry walked away from the orderly abruptly and headed for the room. "I will wait outside in order not to frighten the child," Nightwolf suggested. "I do sense something." "Good idea. What is it?" "I'm not sure yet." Issa sat on her bed, just as before, and looked up when Larry knocked on the doorframe. He took off his sunglasses and tucked them in his leather jacket. "Hey there. Are you here to take me away?" "Do you want me to?" She shrugged. "I don't know if you can." "Well, let's not think about that then. Instead, do you like stories?" Hesitantly, she nodded. "May I come in and sit in that chair?" Again she nodded. "My name's Larry, but they call me Blacktide. What's your name?" "Issa." "I like that name." She perked up a little. "So what's your story about?" Larry leaned forward in his chair. "Well, when I was just a little older than you, something really weird happened to me." At the sound of this, she perked up even more. "I found out that I had an amazing ability. I could turn anything around me into smoke. It's called disintegration. Do you know what happened after that?" She shook her head, wide-eyed with wonder. "Everyone got scared of me." "Everyone is scared of me, too!" Issa exclaimed. "Do you also have an imaginary friend?" "Imaginary friend?" "I have an imaginary friend, but he's not very nice. Is yours nice?" The table next to the bed shook slightly. "Yeah," Larry replied, feeling a tremor in the floor. "I have a very good friend. Maybe you'd like to meet him." He eyed the table suspiciously. "Oh, no. No. What is it, Issa? What's wrong?" Her eyes welled with tears. "You should run." A shadow grew and loomed in the corner of the room. It's not the child, Nightwolf's voice boomed in his head. Ow! Too loud! It's a secondary entity. Can you tackle it? I will do my best. I'll grab the girl. He turned his attention back to Issa. Okay, this is very important. I need you to listen to me. You listening? She nodded and sniffled. This is not your friend. Friends don't hurt people. This is one of the bad guys, and I'm here to help you escape, but you have to be brave for me. She shook her head as the shadow grew closer. You can't. No one can. We can. My friend is right outside. He'll help us. Now we're going to have to run, okay? He held out his hand. The tall, humanoid shape manifested from the shadows. Its raspy voice filled the air. You mustn't touch the children. A savage roar echoed as Nightwolf flew into the room and tried a flying tackle. Since both of them were intangible, it worked. The two of them went through the far wall. Blacktide snatched up the surprised girl in his arms, and ran out the door. Out of my way now, he shouted as an orderly almost stepped in front of him. The rest wanted nothing to do with the situation and were glad to stay out of it. He's not my friend? Issa asked as she clutched tight to his shoulder. No, he's not. Is he the boogeyman? I don't know, Issa, but we're going to find out. Did he ever mention having a name? He raced into the stairwell to avoid being caught in the elevator. Silhouette. Wow, that's a big word for a little kid. Wonder why he calls himself that. At that moment, the shadowy creature came through the door behind them, but Nightwolf was on him again. They spun out a nearby window. As the two struggled with each other, they rolled and flew through walls of patients' rooms and doctors' offices. People fled and screamed at the sight of them. Since this place was a psychiatric hospital, matters were worse. Patients suffering anxiety disorders were in total panic. Much of the staff were too busy dodging for themselves to contain panicking patients. I'm having difficulty containing him. Do you have a plan? Nightwolf's voice came again to Larry's mind. Get him outside. That's where I'm going. Knowing that Nightwolf and Silhouette weren't far behind, he found the first door on ground level he could and burst outside. Alarms blared, but they were the least of his worries. He ran across the green lawn to a small grove of trees and bushes. He set Issa down. You hide in there. We'll deal with this guy now. Issa didn't argue. She crawled into the thick of the bushes and curled up tight, hugging her knees. He'll burn you. Not if I burn him first. Now close your eyes tight until I tell you to open them. He didn't want the scene to terrify her further, and could think of nothing else to protect her. Nightwolf and the Silhouette spun out into the air, snarling, swiping, and clawing at each other. Even though they could connect somewhat, they didn't seem able to hurt each other very much. Blacktide raised the intensity of his disintegration field around his body. The ground at his feet began to smolder. He had no idea if his power could work on such a being. He'd never tried before. He raised his hand and took aim. He didn't want to hit his partner. Could his power hurt Nightwolf? This thought caused him to pause. He didn't want to hurt another friend, with his power ever again, especially not his best friend and partner. The child, it snarled as it finally broke free and lunged for Blacktide. Now! Have faith, my friend, and strike now! Larry hated it when Nightwolf shouted in his head, but this time it was for good cause. It shook him back to reality, and he fired his power just as the beast was within inches of him. Disintegration makes a kind of low, coughing whump noise, barely audible to human ears. The energy beam hit the shadowy Silhouette, and actually threw the entity backwards a few yards. The Silhouette dropped to its knees, clutching what appeared to be its chest. Its red eyes opened wide as if it were surprised. Nightwolf flew up behind it and ghosted a hand through its head. Nightwolf's unique power to disrupt mental and life energies took effect. The entity gave a terrible shriek that rattled windows and made everyone cover their ears. Then it exploded in all directions like shadows running from the rays of the sun. As the ringing in his ears wore off, Blacktide stood back up from one knee and looked around. It is gone, Nightwolf said as he shook off the effect by rattling his big head back and forth. I no longer sense it. Guess we won't know what its deal was then. He looked back to Issa and knelt near the bushes. Hey, you okay? Come on out and meet my friend. I promise you he's nice. Issa accepted a hand to help her out of the bushes. She looked up at Nightwolf in wonder. "Are you a dog man?" He chuckled softly. "I look like one, don't I?" "Do you sense any reason that thing was interested in her?" Blacktide asked. "I sense dormant psychic ability in her. It's possible it was drawn to that, particularly because she is a child." "Will he come back?" Issa asked. "I don't think so, and if it does, we'll send it running," Blacktide said. "But how would you like to go to a much nicer place than this?" "Is it a hospital?" "Kinda, but way cooler than this one. You can even have a ride on my motorcycle." He spoke of a hospital for people with powers. It was a place that existed to study the developing powers in people and help them with control if needed. "That would be nice." She looked up at Nightwolf. "But I'd really like to fly. Will he carry me?" Larry smiled. "Ask him." Nightwolf was too happy to oblige, for the joy of a child. Just a little short story. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry, sometimes talking's difficult for me and I get tripped up, but I hope I did all right with it. So that was Imaginary Enemy. There are 12 awesome stories in here, and you can find it via my my authors page. If you're on the blog spot, if you look up to the right-hand side, you'll see the link to my authors page. So I welcome you to come there. You can get it on your Kindle for 99 cents or order the paperback. Excuse me. Past that, remember you can always do something awesome, never give up, and inspire others. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.